Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says Tehran will give a crushing response to the United States over its unilateral decision to reimpose sanctions. In a statement, Rouhani said United States allies have rebuked it over the illegal move. He added Iranians will never yield to United States pressure. The Taliban say only an Islamic system can solve problems and heal the wounds of Afghanistan's people. In a statement, Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said it is now time to insist upon greater religious objectives. Mujahid said in the Islamic system, women can work in the areas including education, health, policing, but in a safer environment. Tens of thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in Bangkok for the second straight day against Thailand's king, Maha Vajiralongkorn. Protesters are demanding a major reduction in the king's powers, removal of the Prime Minister Prayuth Chan-o-cha, a new constitution and elections. They also installed a plaque near the Grand Palace declaring Thailand belongs to the people and not to the monarch. The Italians are voting in a constitutional referendum over a proposal to cut the number of lawmakers and 7 regional elections. The referendum proposes reducing the number of lawmakers to 400 from 630 in the lower house and from 315 to 200 in the upper house. Authorities say masks are mandatory to cast the ballots in the first public vote since the Covid-19 outbreak in the country. In India, more than 1,100 people have died and over 92,000 have contracted Covid-19 over the past 24 hours. The country's death toll has crossed 86,000 with more than 5.4 million confirmed cases. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, the death rate continues to decline as one person died of the virus overnight, with the tally standing at 6,416. The novel coronavirus has claimed over 955,000 lives across the globe and has infected over 30.6 million so far. News coming in detail after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says Tehran will give a crushing response to the United States over its unilateral decision to reimpose sanctions. In a statement, Rouhani said U.S. allies have rebuked it over the illegal move. He added Iranians will never yield to U.S. pressure. Rouhani lauded the members of the Security Council for resisting U.S. pressure for reimposing UN sanctions on Tehran. He said Tehran is ready to fully respect the 2015 nuclear deal when all other parties will do the same. Earlier, the foreign ministers of the United Kingdom, France and Germany said the United States has no mandate to reimpose sanctions on Iran. Now, 5 civilians have been wounded after missiles hit Saudi Arabia's Jizan region. Saudi state media says 3 cars were also damaged in the attack on a border village in the Al-Hath governorate. The media quoted Jizan civil defense spokesperson Colonel Mohammad Yahya Al-Ghamdi as saying missiles targeted civilians protected under international humanitarian law. Ghamdi accused Houthis of the attack, but they have yet not claimed the responsibility. Now, Turkey says it has killed 8 militants of the Kurdistan Workers' Party in northern Syria. The Defense Ministry said the militants were attempting to infiltrate the area of Turkey's anti-terror Peace Spring operation. It said Ankara will not allow terrorists to disturb peace and security in the Operation Peace Spring zone in northeastern Syria. Since 2016, Turkey has launched a trio of operations across its borders into northern Syria. Ankara holds the fighters group responsible for the deaths of some 40,000 people in a 30-year terror campaign. Meanwhile, the Interior Ministry said security forces also neutralized 2 terrorists in southeastern Turkey as part of the Operation Yildirim II. Now, the Taliban say only an Islamic system can solve problems and heal the wounds of Afghanistan's people. In a statement, Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said it is now time to insist upon greater religious objectives. Mujahid said in the Islamic system, women can work in the areas including education, health, policing, but in a safer environment. He said from the time intra-Afghan negotiations began and the Taliban echoed the call of an Islamic system as a focal point of discussions. Earlier, President Ashraf Ghani asked the Taliban to declare a humanitarian ceasefire amid peace talks in Doha. In a statement issued by the presidential palace, the Afghan president said a lasting ceasefire is essential to ensure the security of Afghan civilians. He also condemned yesterday's fatal attack on deputy head of Bakhtiar Provincial Council in Gardesh city. Meanwhile, veteran Afghan fighter and head of the Hizb-e-Islami party, Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, has expressed willingness to form an alliance with the Taliban. Speaking in Kabul, Hikmatyar said his party is ready for direct talks with the Taliban for partnership and cooperation. He said if the 2 groups join hands, the crisis in Afghanistan will end soon and no force will be able to stand against it. Hikmatyar added his party will be looking forward to the talks once the first round of negotiations between Kabul and the Taliban is completed. He said the Afghan government is weak while the Taliban and Hizb-e-Islami share mutual values. Hikmatyar also said India is dissatisfied with the peace push and has started backing militias to act as spoilers. Moving on, tens of thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in Bangkok for the second straight day against Thailand's king, Maha Vajiralongkorn. Protesters are demanding a major reduction in the king's powers, removal of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, a new constitution and elections. Criticizing the monarchy is illegal under Thailand's laws, but demonstrations have grown exponentially since they started 2 months ago. Protesters also installed a plaque in the field opposite the Grand Palace. The message on the sign reads, "Thailand belongs to the people and not to the monarchs." The government has deployed unarmed police with crowd control barriers. A government spokesman has assured the police will not use violence against protesters. But he said it is up to the police to determine and prosecute any illegal speech. Meanwhile, Venezuela has rejected a United Nations report on alleged human rights violations in the country, calling it war propaganda. In a press briefing, Venezuela's Foreign Minister Jorge Araiza said the 444-page report is an absolute fraud. Araiza said it was irresponsible of the United Nations representatives to not consult the authorities during their investigation. The report alleges Venezuela's socialist government committed systematic human rights violations. The investigators based the claims on over 270 interviews with victims, witnesses, former officials and confidential documents. Araiza said the release of the report amid United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's regional visit was meant to tarnish Venezuela's reputation.
The report is absolutely a fraud. It is a monument to war propaganda. That is exactly what this report is seeking, a moral death, the death of a reputation, and they are not going to do it. Look at how it all fits. They do this in the middle of Mike Pompeo's tour of neighboring countries of Venezuela, a tour of intimidation.
Well, Pompeo is currently on a 4-nation South America tour to pressure Maduro into resigning amid economic sanctions and U.S. narco-terrorism charges. Now, United States President Donald Trump has approved the deal between Oracle Corporation and China's video-sharing app TikTok. Talking to reporters, Trump said Oracle and Walmart will have total control over the company's operations in the United States. The Commerce Department said for the deal to be completed, it will delay earlier download ban order by a week. Trump said TikTok Global will likely have its headquarters in Texas, creating at least 25,000 direct jobs.
So everybody will be happy. It's a severance. It'll continue to be named TikTok as it was all along, and that's it. That's it. So I can say that I have given the deal my blessing. If they get it done, that's great. If they don't, that's okay too. But it's a great deal for America, and very interesting.
Walmart says it will take a 7.5% stake in TikTok Global, while Oracle will have 12.5%. Now, the strategic Trills of Caucasus 2020 have been started in the southern Astrakhan Oblast region of Russia. At an inaugural ceremony, the flag bearers from the participating countries jointly raised the flag of the drills. Pakistan, China, Russia, Armenia, Belarus and Myanmar are participating in the military exercises, adding up to over 80,000 personnel. The troops are divided into the ground-based tactical group along with the similar Air Force and Navy groups. The commander of Chinese troops, Liu Qiyaovo, said the drills are staged to maintain regional peace and stability. Now, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says people who break new self-isolation rules after contacting COVID-19 will face a fine up to $13,000. The new law will be effective from September 28th in England, and government officials are in talks to expand it to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. It said staying at home for at least 10 days after noticing COVID-19 symptoms will be necessary. But despite threats of these heavy fines, more than 1,000 people gathered in central London to protest the government-imposed COVID restrictions. Earlier, Johnson said Britain is seeing a second wave of the coronavirus after the same was experienced in France and Spain. Meanwhile, Italians are voting in a constitutional referendum over a proposal to cut the number of lawmakers and 7 regional elections. Authorities say masks and hand sanitizers are mandatory to cast the ballot in the first public vote since the deadly COVID-19 outbreak in the country. The referendum proposes to reduce the number of lawmakers to 400 from 630 in the lower house and from 315 to 200 in the upper house. The co-ruling Five Star Movement has long called for the amendments, which is expected to pass despite indifferent backing from several other parties. The Five Star says the move will save money and streamline parliamentary processes, while the opponents say it will disrupt committee work with minimal savings. If the referendum goes through, the electoral system will need to be overhauled. The regional votes are being held in Tuscany, Puglia, Liguria, Marche, Veneto, Campania and Valle d'Aosta. Meanwhile, 9,000 asylum seekers have moved into a new temporary facility on the Greek island of Lesbos. The new settlement has been established after a fire destroyed the Moria camp. Greek authorities say the new camp has been set up at Karatepe near the port of Mytilene. They said those entering the camp are being tested for the coronavirus. The authorities say they have so far placed 214 of the migrants in quarantine after positive tests. Displacing 12,000 people, the Moria fire left refugees without shelter, sanitation and access to food. Authorities believe the fire was started by the migrants after a dispute over quarantine measures at the facility. Now moving to Greece, where a medical centre and main roads have collapsed in the Karditsa region after Storm Lannis caused a river to overflow its banks. Cyclone Lannis uprooted trees and caused power cuts on the Ionian Islands and the western Peloponnese. It swept through central Greece, hitting areas in and around cities of Karditsa and Pharsala. Authorities say 2 people have died, while a search is underway for 2 others who have been reported missing. They say the electricity grid is struggling to cope and efforts are being made to restore the power. The Coast Guard says 5 vessels sank off Zakynthos and Lefkada. More news coming up in this bulletin after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now in India, more than 1,100 people have died and over 92,000 have contracted COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. The country's death toll has crossed 86,000 with more than 5.4 million confirmed cases so far. The novel coronavirus has claimed over 957,000 lives across the globe and has infected more than 30.7 million so far. Details in this report.
The world has pinned hopes on an early release of a COVID-19 vaccine as cases start surging in virtually all parts of the world. After the Americas and India, the disease is now again spreading across Europe with no exception. France set another record in daily infections since the disease started to spread in the country. The UK has also recorded its biggest increase in COVID-19 cases since May. Restaurants and shopping centers reopened in Bolivia after 6 months of lockdown to stop the spread of coronavirus.
The pandemic situation has been very irregular, and you have another group of people that don't even use a face mask. We have entered a phase of false security in the population, and that could see a second wave, or we could at least be seeing an uptick in the pandemic.
Meanwhile, doctors in Turkey are protesting against inadequate measures, accusing the government of misreporting the caseload to downplay the virus.
As we said, these numbers do not reflect the reality. We know the real number of patients is at least 10 times higher than the number revealed by the health ministry, and the number of deaths are at least 3 times higher. And these are just the assessments based on patients with positive PCR tests.
COVID-19 continues spreading aggressively through Indonesia, piling a record daily increase in confirmed cases. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, number of daily deaths and infections are on the rise as the country reports the highest caseload in Southeast Asia.
While the number of COVID-19 deaths continues to steeply decline in Pakistan as one person lost his life to the virus in the last 24 hours, the Health Ministry says 640 people have tested positive for the virus overnight. It said the number of active cases in the country stands at 6,952. The ministry said so far over 292,000 people have recovered from the disease. It said 837 people are admitted in the hospitals, out of which 106 are on ventilators. Now, a Brazilian wheelchair-bound man has efficiently proven to be differently able. Juliano D'Aurelio is a local celebrity in downtown Sao Paulo, famous for beating the odds and coming out stronger than ever. More about this delivery man in this report.
Aurelio zips around Sao Paulo, bringing meals to hungry customers. But unlike other food delivery men, he does not ride a bike to weave his way through the hectic streets of Brazil's megacity. 5 years ago, an accident dramatically changed Aurelio's life. Since he finally embraced his wheelchair as a source of strength rather than a sign of his disability, he hasn't looked back.
I tried to commit suicide 3 times and it didn't happen. Thank God. I don't regret it because life goes on, and today I am very happy. My wife is by my side helping me out, making me stronger, always providing me with moral support. When my life changed, after accepting that I would live in a wheelchair, I remember I looked at the wheelchair and spoke to it. If I'm going to live with you, then I'm going to live. I want to see if you can handle me because I'm going to handle you. I want to see if you can take me.
Aurelio says he raised about $2,200 to adapt his motorbike to fit his wheelchair and in preparation for his job as a delivery man. He has been delivering food for some 6 months now, just about when the pandemic brought much of Brazil to a halt. But he is thankful for the daily grind of his job for getting him through tough times economically and emotionally.
The job of a delivery man is not made for us wheelchair users. I am in this situation today working as a delivery man, overcoming obstacles, overcoming challenges, because us wheelchair users are not useless. We are not disabled, we are able to do things, we are capable of everything. We just have to run after it.
The delivery man says he has never been discriminated against and nobody has ever treated him disrespectfully. He is not getting too rich, but his life has been on the up.
Now, a paraglider takes a quick nap as he flies over Turkey on a bed attached to his parachute. More about his stunt in this report. The 28-year-old professional paraglider, Hasan Keval, is known for eye-catching feats in the sky. For this nap stunt, he fitted his parachute to a bed, complete with a nightstand, a lamp, and an alarm clock. He took off from Yasi Tepe a hill about 800 meters high in Alania, a popular district among tourists in the Mediterranean province of Antalya. Unlike paragliding tourists trying to see all Alania, Cable conveniently wore a sleep mask and dozed off for a while. When the alarm went off, it was time to, well, wake up and bring the bed back down to the ground. He landed smoothly on a beach, smiling at surprised tourists. Cable has previously attached a sofa and a TV to his parachute to recreate the atmosphere of his living room in the sky. Well, that's a must-try now. Landmarks in Germany's capital Berlin have lit up during the annual Festival of Lights. This year's theme of Together We Shine pays tribute to the city and the solidarity of its residents during the coronavirus pandemic. Every year in fall, Berlin becomes a city of light art. Light productions on the world-famous landmarks of the German capital make the event one of the most popular light art festivals in the world. Together with national and international artists, the organizers transform Berlin into one big shining stage. Many local and international artists use this unique opportunity to project their temporary works of art onto some of the most recognizable buildings in the world. Illuminating different neighborhoods, this year's festival hopes to bring some joy during the coronavirus pandemic. It also endeavors to spread the concept of gratitude and solidarity in these difficult times and to bring people together outside in an open and safe environment. The festival takes place between 11th and 20th of September with over 100 light installations in more than 86 locations throughout Berlin. And now in the Premier League, Arsenal beat well-drilled West Ham United by 2-1 at an empty Emirates Stadium in London. Arsenal's Alexandre Lacazette headed in the opener in the 25th minute from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's left-wing cross. West Ham levelled just before half-time through Michail Antonio. Eddie Nketiah hit the winner in the 85th minute to steal the 3 points for the Gunners. Meanwhile, Crystal Palace stunned Manchester United with a 3-1 win at the Old Trafford. Andros Townsend opened the scoring in the 7th minute and Wilfried Zaha scored from the spot amid video assistant referee controversy. Reds Devils new signing Donny van de Beek pulled a geek back from. Zaha scored late onto the taking 3 points back to the Selhurst Park. Now, in the National Basketball Association, the Boston Celtics beat the Miami Heat by 117 points to 106 at the NBA's biosecure bubble in Florida. The Celtics now trail Miami by 2-1 in the 7-game Eastern Conference Final Series. Boston shooting guard Jaylen Brown scored 26 points as the Celtics recovered from back-to-back losses in the opening 2 games. Power forward Jason Tatum contributed 25 points and 14 rebounds as Boston never trailed, carrying a 13-point advantage into the second half. Miami's power forward Bam Adebayo posted 27 points and 16 rebounds, with 6 players posting double figures for the Heat. It was only the second loss for the Heat in their 12th playoff games this season. And now let's have a look at the weather updates. Well, that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news. Take care.